President Trump urging the Senate to come together to pass a major prison reform bill.
If they don't pass criminal justice reform now, you're now going to have to negotiate with Nancy Pelosi.
Michael Moore now calling for the shunning of Trump supporters.
You can't build a bridge to a racist or a misogynist. You know, they have to be shunned.
It's really lazy political commentary. These are people that don't want to get into your political ideology, just would prefer to demonize you.
Golf legend squared off in a one-on-one match for $9 million. Phil Mickelson walked away with the win against Tiger Woods.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. With the kids jingle belling and
This show has had a slow effect on me, infecting me with Christmas spirit.
I have changed you.
Yeah, I mean, this is outside on Fox Square, formerly known as the Plaza. We've got Christmas trees out there. We're going to show you how to decorate them, how to treat them well. We'll be out there in a second. But my argument to start the show, and Griff, Rachel, awesome to have you here as always, was that it's still Thanksgiving. Like, the leftovers are still in the fridge. I'm going to go home and eat some. And I want that glow, but Christmas is just seeping in. I guess that's okay.
Well, some of the viewers sent along photos with their email. Here is Gary. He sent this photo saying, it's full on Merry Christmas in this house.
And there's a little Griff there in the photo.
Look at that.
Yes.
That's a beautiful tree. I love that.
Teresa sent us this photo of her ornate mantle. Her family decorates for Christmas on Thanksgiving Day. Way to go, Teresa.
Kathy sent us this photo, adding the outside decorations go up today, and we start wearing Christmas clothing.
I love it.
You can't argue against that. You
No,
can't.
I expect to see some socks in the next couple of weeks from Pete and Griff on some holiday.
We'll bring the Christmas game. Just get me out of this weekend, and then I'm all in.
Tis
So
the
in
season.
the Duffy house, we don't decorate until Advent, but we actually normally cut down our tree on the Saturday of Thanksgiving. So that would be today, except we're here in New
It
York
is
City,
fun to
so we're
cut
going to do it
down
next
a
weekend.
tree. It is fun.
Yeah.
I've done it multiple times.
It's the only way to do
I'll
it
do
if
it
your
this
husband's a lumberjack athlete.
It's almost time to get the elf out on this shelf, but more on that later.
I'd never cut down a tree the first time I did, so I brought like 4 different tools. Like, I'm the opposite of a lumberjack. I didn't know what to do. I brought like an axe and a big saw and a small saw.
There's a lot of
We figured it
lumberjack
out.
skills you could learn from Sean, so we'll work on that.
This is correct. Well, thank you for being here. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, and on this Saturday edition. But we've got news, don't we, Griff?
We've got big news. Listen, there is an issue on the southern border of the United States, which is going to be at the front and center of your morning this morning, tomorrow morning, and really the rest of the week. It is the caravan that has grown to thousands, not hundreds, and it is a problem that is not only an issue for the Americans on the border, but also the Mexican side of the border. The Tijuana mayor there saying, listen, we've got a problem. We can't deal with it. Here's a quote that the mayor of Tijuana said. He says, look, we don't have sufficient and necessary infrastructure to adequately attend to these people, to give them a decent space. He also said he wouldn't spend Tijuana citizens' money to deal with this overbearing problem. It is the same problem I saw all the way from the Guatemala-Mexico border, and that was an oversized caravan of Central Americans bearing down on the resources of the Mexican towns and cities, and now it is on the border of Tijuana.
Well, and it's a story that I think the media has been very reluctant to tell because, the narrative is that only, racist or cold-hearted people on our side of the border are concerned, or even it's been said that this is just a political theater, that it's all a hoax and it's really not a concern.
A big deal, yeah.
A big deal. And yet we have a mayor and many Mexican citizens saying this is really difficult for us to handle. And those are the same things that were being said by mayors and leaders on our side of the border. But it has fallen on deaf ears.
Yeah, President Trump continuing his call for a solution on the border problem. He tweeted this yesterday. He said Republicans and Democrats must come together finally, with a major border security package, which will include funding for the wall. After 40 years of talk, it's finally time for action. Fix the border for once and for all now. I've been remiss in the last couple of hours for not thanking the troops and Border Patrol agents who were on that border on Thanksgiving.
That's true.
The whole Christmas season, on Christmas Day, they will be there so your families are home safe. So thank you to these guys and all those guys that do that job. And Greg Gutfeld, as he often does, cut to the chase on this. You update your iPhone. He said this on a program yesterday. Like every 3 weeks, you're forced to update your phone with updates. We have not updated our immigration policies in decades, let alone a wall, catch and release, the chain migration, all these issues that are talked about. They need to be updated because people have figured out how to exploit the process.
That's absolutely
Send kids
right.
alone, come as a family, claim asylum, all these ways that they now can come in illegally and then stay, and we don't know where they are or who they are. Building a wall is a step in that, and I don't know why I hope anymore. I mean, I don't know if Mitch McConnell at any point has ever really believed in a border wall, that they find a way in this lame duck session to actually address it. Democrats probably never will. Can Republicans get out of their own way? Probably not.
It's not just in Tijuana, though. The story also is across the pond with our allies. If you look at what German Chancellor Angela Merkel is weighing in, she's saying that she'd be willing to give up some sovereignty.
She gave a speech on Wednesday. One of her big speeches, she said that, Griff.
Well, here's what she said. We'll put this up. In this day, nation states should today, I say, be ready to give up sovereignty because, of course, in an orderly procedure. Either you are one of those who believe they can solve everything on their own and only have to think about themselves. That is nationalism in its purest form. This is not patriotism, a shot at the president.
So it's a very Orwellian phrase. Give up sovereignty in an orderly fashion. When the bureaucrats tell you your borders don't matter anymore, just give them up. Welcome anyone in. It does. I mean, think that statement, if you let it soak in, it's why she was rejected. It's what people rejected when they voted for President Trump. Patriotism is nationalism when you're defending the idea of your country.
Right. Well, here's President Trump reacting to some of this. He continues to defend nationalism.
This is him in the past.
Right, of course, yes.
Yeah, you're right.
But I mean, reacting to the whole idea that's going on in Germany and in our own country where they're saying nationalism equals racism, he's saying, no, nationalism is my way of talking about patriotism. And here is the statement. He says,
I am very proud of our country. We cannot continue to allow what's happened to our country to continue to happen. We can't let it happen. So I'm proud of our country. And I am a nationalist. It's a word that hasn't been used too much. Some people use it, but I'm very proud. I think it should be brought back. I'm somebody that wants to help other countries of the world, but I also we have to take care of our country.
You saw that video, by the way, of your kids in front of the flag saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Are they patriots? Are they nationalists? What are we raising here?
Well, I'm hoping I'm raising both because in this day and age, when the elites are trying to erase our borders, they're one and the same. And that's why we had Sebastian Gorka on the program earlier. He said it was a bit rich for the German chancellor to say what she said. Listen.
Nobody who wears the title Chancellor of Germany should be lecturing anybody about nationalism. Forever, for the rest of history. It was American nationalism that saved the world from the Nazis of the Third Reich and the imperialists of Tojo's Japan. The idea that a German chancellor lectures us now, absolutely outrageous.
Yeah, you know who else lectures us about this? Hollywood. And no, really. And they've time and time again made terrible comparisons. We played it on this program, times when Hollywood elites will call ICE agents similar to members of the Third Reich and Nazis.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't go that far in this particular episode of Murphy Brown, but you missed it because you weren't watching it. But Murphy Brown on CBS, in their episode, they portrayed an ICE raid. This is the episode on Thanksgiving. Look at how they portrayed faithful servants of our Constitution enforcing the law. Watch.
We received a call from a neighbor here about a taco truck parked in a residential area. Noticed the taillights cracked, ran the plates. Seems the truck belongs to a Carlos and Maria Gonzalez. Undocumented immigrants, outstanding removal order.
You guys cannot barge in here like this. I know you're used to dealing with people who are scared and vulnerable, but if you don't get out of this truck, I will spatchcock you.
What did they do except give up everything so I could grow up in a country that we thought was the most compassionate place in the world?
Sorry, kid. We're just following government orders.
So a lot of people may not know what that cooking term spatchcock is, and that actually means to cut a chicken in half, butterfly it with a knife. So I don't really think this is a really nice thing to say to our Border Patrol or ICE agents.
To put it very kindly.
To put it very kindly. This is, in fact, I think this is a real insult. I watched the whole episode, and I just thought, wow, they just are so out of touch with what these agents actually do.
Right. Well, It actually didn't. It didn't end there. She went on. The whole thing. I don't know where they pulled her out of the closet. Back in the '90s, she got into a row of her single parents with Dan Quayle. Now she's tackling this thing, and in her later thing where she goes on a show. This time she's a morning show host. She really weighs in and tries to tug on your heartstrings, despite the realities of the rule of law. We had Mike Slater, who is a radio host out in Southern California, and here's sort of what he said about this Murphy Brown episode. Take a listen.
There's this very contrived plot to ultimately culminate in this super blowhardy speech from Murphy Brown about how she thought we were a compassionate country, but we're really not. And of course, that's all nonsense. There are more ICE agents that deal with human trafficking and drug and weapon smuggling than deal with deportations. I bet more people were saved, more lives were saved from human smuggling in the 30 minutes of that Murphy Brown episode than fake people were deported in the episode itself. ICE saves lives.
Well said, Mike Slater. If you watch the end of that other clip, too, the fake ICE agent they have playing on that Murphy Brown episode said, "I'm just following government orders." It makes it sound like the government is issuing these orders that are beyond the law. No, he's following the law, which was written by Congress and enforced by the executive. It's a very big difference, and you should be grateful, as he said, for the fact that they're standing on that wall, enforcing our laws while you're home safe with your family. And a lot of the people that criticize this are in their gated communities, in their private schools, where they're never affected by the ramifications of illegal immigration.
Also not mentioned that we are the most open to immigrant country on the planet. We receive more immigrants than any other country in the world. So the idea that we're not open and generous and loving towards immigrants is just not true. We're going to turn to some quick headlines now. We begin with a Fox News alert. Violent protests are breaking out in Paris over rising fuel prices. Police are using tear gas and water cannons to disperse the thousands of angry mobs. Some even throwing firecrackers at officers as they call for President Emmanuel Macron to resign. The price of diesel, most commonly used in France, has gone up about 23% since last year. Black Friday shoppers run for their lives during a shooting inside of a New Jersey mall.
Get down here, come on! Get down!
Was shot in the wrist, and it's unclear what caused the gunfire. Police say the victim is refusing to identify the gunman. No arrests have been made thus far. And real and fake Christmas tree sellers are pining for your purchase. They're creating new online ads to convince you that their trees are greener and greater than the other.
Smells like Christmas. That can't be manufactured.
So get the family together and make a memory that'll last a lifetime.
It's Christmas! Keep it real!
We asked which trees you prefer, and Evie writes in, "I like my artificial tree. It's a breeze to decorate." And MG Willow says, "Real tree keeps in touch with nature." And those are your headlines. That's
really
the big debate, real or fake? Real
really
or fake?
just the smell of the real tree that I love.
You can also spray that on me.
Okay, then you could convince me the other way, too.
You can spray on your butter. You can spray on your pine smell.
You got to go real. You got to go
to America. All right. James Comey and Loretta Lynch subpoenaed over the handling of the Hillary Clinton email case. But Comey says he wants to testify in public. Why? House Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte, who is on the Judiciary Committee, chairs it, joins us next.
In terrifying,
he claims he's happy to sit for a public hearing.
So will the Judiciary House Committee get the answers they need?
Let's ask the chairman of that committee, Congressman Bob Goodlatte. He joins us now. Chairman, thank you very much for being here this morning, and happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas. We'll give you a twofer. This hearing.
Thanks, guys. Same to you.
You got it. Thank you very much. A lot of attention being paid to this potential hearing. You say it should be behind closed doors. The former director wants it in open hearing. Make your case for why it should be behind closed doors.
Sure. Well, I think it's particularly telling that the former director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation says he would resist a lawfully issued congressional subpoena because it is done in the same fashion that every investigation he ever conducted as an investigator and as director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which is behind closed doors. Why? So that other witnesses can't hear the same testimony. Why? Because we have hundreds of questions to ask, and they'll be asked by former prosecutors and investigators who are professionally trained to do that. When you have an open hearing and each member of Congress gets 5 minutes to ask questions, you can't dig deep into the important issues that have been raised in this investigation by the other witnesses we've interviewed, by the Inspector General, who has a 400-page report, by Mr. Comey himself, who's written a book, and I guess maybe he just wants to sell more copies of it, but he needs to do this in a professional fashion. And once we're done, we'll release that that transcript to the public so everyone can see everything that he testified to. But it needs to be done in a way that comports with how an investigation is conducted.
Now, Mr. Chairman, Comey's attorneys have said publicly that they're going to fight this. Do they have a case?
Well, they don't have a case for doing that. What they're going to try to do is run the clock out on Chairman Gowdy and I, because they know our terms expire at the end of the year. That's a futile effort because Senator Lindsey Graham, who is expected to be the next chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and Ron Johnson, chairman of the Senate Oversight Committee, have already said they're going to pick up on our work. They're going to take all of the information that we've gathered, and they're going to move forward on this, as is the Inspector General. And ultimately, I hope a special counsel will be appointed. And I guarantee you that special counsel is going to interview Mr. Comey. He's going to do it in a way that allows for an in-depth questioning of all of the issues that Mr. Comey needs to answer for how he conducted himself in 2016 and early 2017.
So, Mr. Chairman, you're pivoting to the Senate. Is it your belief then that the incoming chairman of your committee, I believe is Jerry Nadler, will not pick up this issue?
I am very concerned that Mr. Nadler, who has not done anything other than criticize this investigation since it started a little over a year ago, is not going to follow through. And it's too bad because, you know, Democrats should be just as concerned about Mr. Comey's actions in 2016, including his decision to reopen the Hillary Clinton investigation and tell the whole world a week before the election. So there's a lot for Mr. Comey to answer for, and everybody should be interested in a complete interview of him and not simply a show hearing where we don't get to the bottom of these matters.
Yeah, one would hope. You'll probably get a lot of grandstanding if it's in public. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it this morning.
Thank you, Congressman. $10. That's how much a man is suspected of literally laundering. Amsterdam police finding the cash stuffed inside his washing machine. The 24-year-old faces several charges. Next, $10,000. That's how much the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma is offering you to move there. They're hoping to attract people who work from home to boost the economy. Workers must agree to stay for 1 year. And finally, $7.5 million. That's how much a bargain hunter found inside a storage unit. They bought it for just $500 from the star of the TV series Storage Wars. The new owners get to keep $1.2 million of it. Not a bad deal if you can get it.
Pretty good deal.
I'd say so.
Thanks, Griff. Well, President Trump continued his push for bipartisan criminal justice reform on Friday. President tweeting this. He said, really good criminal justice reform has a true shot at major bipartisan support. Senator Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer have a real chance to do something so badly needed in our country. Already passed with a big vote in the House. Would be a major victory for all.
So why is criminal justice reform a good idea? Well, joining us now, President of Samaritan's Purse and the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, Reverend Franklin Graham. Always an honor to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you.
So tell me why you think the evangelical community, the Christian community in America should get involved in this criminal justice reform issue.
Well, first of all, we do need reform, no question about it. And this is not a perfect bill, but it's a step, I think, in the right direction. And to have bipartisan support, who thought that would be possible? This is tremendous. And we need reform when it comes to the sentencing. Judges need to have more latitude when it comes to the sentencing. Not every criminal is the same. Not every person is the same. The circumstances are different. They need more latitude, more leeway. We need to have better training, no question. We're not getting people prepared to leave prison, to go back into the real world where they can get a job and they're marketable. These are things that in this bill that can be of great help, and also their access for more Christian organizations to work behind the wire. You see, I believe the only real hope for anybody, you, me, prisoners, is God. It's only God that can change a heart, and that happens when we put our faith and trust in His Son, Jesus Christ. And I hope that the prisons will open up to more Christian organizations, because I think Christian organizations can make a real difference, because the message that we have is a message of redemption, a message of hope, and that's through faith in God's Son, Jesus Christ.
Debate over something like criminal justice reform, Reverend, really comes down to a Christian debate, too. Justice and grace, which one holds more sway? Is the sense that we've gone too far in terms of justice and should be giving more grace? How do you frame it in theological terms?
Well, that will be debated, I'm sure, a century from now. No question, I believe in grace. We all do. We all need God's grace. But at the same time, God is a God who is a just God. And He's a fair God, but He's also a God of judgment. We have to understand He loves us, but He's going to judge us for our sin. And if we repent and turn from our sin and believe on Jesus Christ, God will not hold us accountable for our sins. But in the prisons, we need to show grace, we need to show love and compassion, but at the same time there has to be justice. We have to account for our actions, and if we do something wrong, there's a penalty to be paid. But some of these penalties, I think, have been far too stiff for the crime that's been committed.
Yeah, Reverend, your father is buried in a casket built by prisoners in Angola State Prison. Is it your sense that
That's right.
partisan politics has really gotten in the way of doing the right thing? And then I just want to add to that how important you think it is, now that we have entered the holiday season, I've been saying Merry Christmas all morning, that we come together.
Well, for the Congress to come together on this bill, I think is great. Yes, my father is buried in a casket built by prisoners. These were murderers that built his casket, but they had been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. These men who were murderers had put their faith in God and His Son, Jesus Christ. They were still in prison. They had a life sentence. They weren't coming out, but their lives were changed, and they built this casket for my father. God can change a life, all of us. He can change our hearts. And in the prison, you can have all the reform bills you want out there, but unless a person's heart is changed by God through faith in His Son, Jesus Christ, I don't have a lot of hope. But we need to have access to these prisons. In Angola, the warden down there, Burl Cain, he was probably the best warden in the history of our country. He turned that Angola prison, which was the worst prison in America, the bloodiest prison in America, and he turned that whole prison completely around, and it was really the Christians in the state of Louisiana that helped Burl Cain turn that around. And it's a great example. I just wish more people would go down to Louisiana and look at Angola prison, what happened down there.
Wonderful, wonderful message. Thank you very much, Reverend. On a lighter note, I need a definitive judgment from you, Reverend. Real tree or fake tree for Christmas?
Well, I live in a part of North Carolina where they grow real trees, so if I said fake tree, I would have trouble.
You'd be in trouble. That away. Thank you, Reverend. That's tremendous. Thank you very much.
Sir.
Merry
Appreciate
Christmas
Merry
to
Christmas.
you.
We'll debate that in Wisconsin. We'll have a debate on that one later.
Well, good man. What an important message.
A beautiful
grace
message.
needed for all of us in this Christmas season. All right. Thousands of migrants camping out in Tijuana, waiting to cross the border near San Diego. The new director of field operations there tells us what they're doing to keep our border safe.
Plus, it's time to get that Christmas tree up, whether it's fake or real, and we've got the tricks for your decorating expertise. You don't want to miss that.
And he's not your typical Grinch. This year, he's more considerate and a little less scary.
You're a mean one.
Today, we will do mean things, and we will do them in style.
Actually saw the movie, so we're going to get some insight from him. Is this new movie warping kids into weak-minded snowflakes?
That's the headline. Gutted Grinch, warping kids. Here's part of the argument from the New York Post about the new Grinch movie. It says, we got to roll to it. I can't see it. There we go. This holiday season, kids are discovering a new, more considerate, less scary Grinch, a Grinch to take home to your mother. This is a Grinch film with 0 point beyond continuing society's destructive habit of protecting kids from harmless and potentially useful stories. Instead, we insist on shielding little ones from the harsh realities of the world so that when they finally enter it, they'll prefer the warm embrace of their parents' basement.
Bah humbug.
I will say, I went and saw this movie with my 8-year-old. We had a little time on our hands. We went and saw it. I won't go that far. The Grinch is still pretty Grinchy, but you're right. They soften him up a little bit. They don't even use, if you listen to the words of the Grinch film, of the song, it's actually kind of mean and gory, right?
Yeah. You're a mean one.
You're a mean one.
Mr. Grinch.
Look up the lyrics. They're kind of, so they riffed on it with like a rap song that kind of glazed over it. I will say this, if the Grinch is less Grinchy, then the transformation is less impressive. Like the more Grinchy he is, the more interesting is the fact that his heart grows 2 sizes larger and he saves the village. But in this film, you're kind of like, well, he's not that bad. He'll probably come around. Whereas in the older films, you're like, there's no way this guy can be redeemed.
I think the point is we were all raised on the old version of the Grinch.
Yeah.
We turned out okay, right?
Yeah, I'll say this. Middle ground, it's not that bad. It's still a fun movie, but they soften them up.
I'm going to go see it.
Why are we doing that?
I got to go see it.
Why are we doing that?
Well, we're going to get to some headlines, which aren't so soft. New documents reveal disturbing details in the case of a man convicted of murdering his family. Chris Watts' mother-in-law immediately suspected him in the disappearance of his wife and 2 daughters. The marriage was crippling as Watts was having an affair. His wife was 15 weeks pregnant when she was found dead. The Colorado family was reported missing in August. A neighborhood is in ruins after a house bursts into flames. Look at this. A home explodes into a fireball in St. Paul, Minnesota. The homeowner is in critical condition. Neighbors say flames shot as high as 50 feet into the air as the blast blew out windows nearby. Authorities believe it may have been caused by a gas leak. 2 dogs and a cat were thankfully also rescued. A 6th grader's note helped a New York man find a hit-and-run driver, and you'll never believe who it was. Andrew Sipowicz tweeted, "Shout out to the anonymous 6th grader for saving me a couple thousand." The note describes when her school bus hit the car and took off. Sipowicz tracked down the company who's now paying for his repairs. The bus driver was fired. And some people are breaking Christmas tradition by ditching their green trees for colorful ones like this. You can expect a growing trend of these bright and colorful trees this holiday season. See what you guys all think about that. And those are your headlines. Rick, do you have some weather for us?
We do have some weather. Hey,
Yeah, yes.
But look at this. He had to this?
Actually, he hasn't yet, but we're hoping when we get home.
Is that 20 apiece or is it 20 each?
I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Each. Good answer. 20 each. There you go. We love you, Grandpa. Take a look at the weather map, show you what's going on this morning. Travel delays, we're going to have a few of them across parts of the east. A big storm, actually quite a bit of rain associated with it. Anywhere you see those yellow dots throughout the day, that rainstorm moves on in. Out across the west, overall fine today. More moisture moves in tomorrow. Move forward, take a look at the satellite radar picture. Actually, we'll take a look at your temperatures. Chilly, but not that bad. We had all of that cold air across the northeast. That, for the most part, is gone. 38 in New York, 25 in Caribou, Maine, so a little bit chilly still there, but look at that, 72 in Tampa. Moving forward, you see this big storm that we have all across parts of the east. Be very careful because we have some icing going on. As you zoom in a little bit here, we had some icing across parts of the Carolina Mountains. This caused some problems for traffic, and we're seeing that now spread in across, especially I-80 of Pennsylvania.
Wow, all the way down to the freeway level. Well done, Rick.
All the way down to the freeway, I-80. That's what I do.
Nice. All right, now look, earlier we showed you how to pick the perfect Christmas tree and maintain it for the whole Christmas season, but what's the best way to decorate your tree?
Here with some decorating tips, Harold DeLucia again from NYC Trees, and Danny Sue, NYC Trees decorating manager. Danny, thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you. Happy to be
So,
here.
all right, give us the basics. You got the tree, you're home. What do you do?
Well, you got to start with lighting the tree, of course.
Okay, you start with the lighting. Got it.
You got to start with the lights. Now, there's a couple of problems. Some people end up with a pile of lights in one section and a big black hole in another.
Correct.
Or you get the ring around the tree and it's
I'm always
just
guilty of
stripes
that.
of lights, which, if that's your design choice, might not be so bad. But I would say the tried and true method is you want to split the tree in halves or thirds. start at the top, and you want to stick in that female end so that you're ready for a lit topper if you would like. And you want to zigzag all the way down and bob and weave in and out of the tree.
Zigzag on one side and then the other.
Yeah, zigzag and get wider and wider.
That makes sense. So you're not trying to undo it afterwards, going
and
around
as long
and around.
as you don't wrap or cross the strings when you come around the other side, you'll have no issues getting it off at the end of the season.
I've never done that.
I haven't either, but I'm really happy to know this.
And each time you just add another string.
So mine is I always don't have enough, so I'm trying to stretch it
Yes.
through the tree.
Yeah, well, we recommend about 100 lights per foot of tree. So if it's a 6
Is
foot
that like
tree,
one strand?
6 boxes. Yeah, one
Is like
strand is about 100
More than
lights.
you usually use.
And
Right,
Danny,
yeah.
lastly, is there such thing as too many ornaments on a tree?
I don't think so. Never. I think it's all a design choice when it comes to decorating a tree. You want to just start with a theme and go from there. It's kind of the time of year where you get to like be artistic and creative and do whatever you want. So if you just go with your own style choice and spread them all out, you want different sheens, different textures, and you can get really creative with how you create the tree. You can see we've got the classic Christmas here.
Yes.
Or our glamorous golden tree over here, or we've got our winter silver and blue. So you've got a lot of options, and if you like disco, make a disco tree. It really doesn't
Disco
matter.
balls, that's great. All right, Danny, Harold, thank you so much.
Guys, very much.
We're going to throw back to you, Rachel, while we decorate these trees, which isn't going to be hard because they're already decorated.
Well, great ideas out there. I'm a little bit of a director when it comes to the lights. I like all the techniques she's teaching you guys. All right, well, we have to move to some news. Thousands of migrants now camping out in Tijuana, waiting to cross the border near San Diego. The new director of field operations there tells us what they're doing to keep our border safe. And Black Friday was all about the big store blowouts, but today we're celebrating small businesses.
Welcome back. The city of Tijuana declared a humanitarian crisis as thousands of migrants overwhelmed the city, waiting to cross the border near San Diego.
So how is San Diego's Border Patrol preparing for the caravan surge?
Here to weigh in, Customs and Border Patrol's Director of Field Operations for San Diego, Pete Flores. Let me pose that question to you, sir. Thank you very much for your time and for your service. How are you preparing for what's gathering just south of your border?
Well, good morning. We continue to prepare internally and with our partners of DOD in assessing our vulnerabilities or our infrastructure that we have at our ports of entry and in between the ports of entry. Continue to build obstacles, shore up fence lines, build obstacles at ports of entry or any gaps that we see potentially as a concern for us. We continue to watch the caravan movements, continue to watch their messaging, acts, and anything that they're potentially doing in regards to protests, movements, shifting in Mexico. We continue to watch their transit as they move into the Mexicali area and then into the Tijuana area. From an internal aspect, Customs and Border Protection, we have shifted about 1,000 employees between Arizona and California. So we continue to push forces into these areas in order to ensure that we have enough employees here to protect and secure our borders at our ports of entry and in between the ports of entry.
Director, are you putting that eastward shift in place because you're concerned that this large caravan may choose not to come through the port of entry legally, but rather to try and come illegally?
So we have been preparing all along for both. As we surge our forces from Arizona into California, we have been preparing for both, and that is why we've been looking at our fence lines. That is why we've been looking at our ports of entry and working with the Department of Defense on making sure that we are closing any gaps that we see out there with some obstacles in infrastructure. Obviously, what we are requesting and what we are expecting is the caravan members to follow the orderly process of applying for asylum. But we are preparing for the worst, obviously.
Director, on the other side of the border, the Tijuana mayor has expressed a lot of concern. It's just now hitting the news cycle, if you will, saying we're really worried that we don't have the resources. Are you working with them on the other side to either to get intelligence and information about what to expect if they do cross? Or how is that working, the relationship between the two cities?
So here we are working on a regular basis, daily basis, with the government of Mexico on assessing the situation of the migrant caravans, on where they are, and how we work closely together to ensure an orderly process to the border. So the partners, they've been partnering with us on a consistent basis, show of force on the Mexican side of the border to ensure that caravan members do not impede traffic coming up